This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman.
Hi, Sam, Rabbi Spector. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you and to talk to you as always. I asked you to come here not only because you were guidance for me and my family in very special times of our life, also because we share a lot of beliefs and this podcast is about what understanding people and what make people tick. I believe that who we are is part of what we believe too. And who better to talk about beliefs that such a individual who believe so strongly in so many things and can guide others into belief.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk with you. I'm excited for our conversation.
Yeah. So when you have all these people and all those facts that you preach, you lecture, you educate, and you find so many individuals that they're looking for themselves. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like someone can find themselves in faith or through faith?
Yeah, can somebody find themselves in faith? I think, absolutely, I think so. I think that faith is an expression, ultimately, not just of our beliefs, which are each individual and unique, but also of our hopes and ambitions for the world that we live in and for our own lives. And so faith can be a channel for us to really not only express ourselves, but try to create a world in line with our vision of what the world should be. And that's incredibly personal.
And what about, because there are so many, we live in such a global world nowadays, and there are so many mixed relationships, not only like in friendships. Come on, I live in Los Angeles and I have friends from every religion, I believe. I have friends from every ethnicity, and I found so many common ground and common beliefs. And how you manage to maintain and to foster your identity through all this global world?
That's a great question, and I think that's a constant struggle for us. Speaking of my own faith, in America today, 70% of non-Orthodox Jews in the United States are marrying somebody who isn't Jewish. And on one hand, that it's a really wonderful thing that people can see holiness and beauty in us and not just label. I think we live in a world today where fewer and fewer people are putting labels on each other and more of seeing the beauty and holiness in each other, regardless of the color of their skin or what their religion is or their ethnic background. At the same time, though, I often hear people say things like trying to be very progressive and saying, oh, I don't see color. And it's like, well, it's important to still see the uniqueness of different people, I think. I think we should treat people the same, like as equals, regardless of the color of their skin or what their religious background is. However, our ethnic experiences, our religious experiences, they are so crucial to the identity of where we come from. And so to say that I don't see color or something like that is, I believe, a denial of somebody else's narrative.
And heritage also. This is something that fascinates me. We believe in such a world that being politically correct became so much more important than acknowledge someone for who they are. Instead, if like, I'm Latina, doesn't matter how I look, but I'm still, culturally, I'm a Latina.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm proud to be who I am. And I'm Jewish too, and I'm proud of that mix. But it's so politically correct that people try not to label, like you lose who you are for being politically correct.
So I think that like what we need to do is, again, in my tradition, it says in Genesis that every person was made in God's image and likeness. So we have to see holiness and godliness in every person and realize that each person has something beautiful and special about them. But also what we need to realize is each person was made unique, and that we have to appreciate that uniqueness. Otherwise we aren't truly appreciating their creation. Because if two people were the exact same people and had the exact same story, there'd be no reason for that other person to exist here in the world. And so I think it is important to see beauty in everyone, but also to see that unique beauty in them, and to recognize and hear their narrative, hear their story, and appreciate that. And for ourselves to appreciate what we share with all of humankind, but also what makes us the unique individuals that we are.
There was this law of attraction that make us being attractive to a person because who they are.
Sure. I think that absolutely there are things that we look for, and we look for things that are part of people's narratives. For me, as a rabbi, I think I often do gravitate more towards other Jewish people, and certainly when I would date other Jewish people, because that's so important to what my narrative is. Now, I know other people, my brother, for instance, he's also Jewish, but when you ask him about his identity, some of the things that more clearly define his uniqueness than Judaism, perhaps, are that he is an avid hiker and fisherman, and a doctor also. And so when he was dating, he finding somebody who was Jewish wasn't necessarily the most important thing for him, but finding somebody who he could share his passion for the outdoors with, and that was highly educated. Those were very important qualities for him to find in another. And so that kind of goes into, even though you wouldn't really think about those in terms of an identity like Judaism or Latina or something like that, we're attracted, I think, often to people who can understand us and understand our narrative.
And we can share, like, for example, I love tradition, and everyone who knows me know that I love tradition. And tradition can be not only religious, can be the new traditions that we make as a family. Not only having Friday night dinners, maybe have Sunday night pizza and a movie.
Yes, absolutely.
So those traditions are part of our identity, are what we carry on as a family, the memories.
Absolutely. And I think that, in the Jewish context, that's why Passover is the most observed Jewish holiday. It's all about memories. And I've seen arguments break out over should the matzah balls be floating or sinking because in the soup. And it's because ultimately one person comes from a family where their grandmother's matzah balls always floated, and the other person says, well, that's completely wrong because my grandmother's always sank.
Well, we're not going to start arguing there because my grandmother was always right.
Exactly. So people find their traditions, and those become, regardless of your faith, those become holy and sacred to them, regardless of your faith or your culture or wherever you may be from.
That's wonderful. Well, you have so many people that they come to you with a lot of issues. Sometimes they are looking just for someone to listen to them and not being a therapist, someone who can just be heard, and that because they have those traditions and those common beliefs, they feel like you can give them some guidance. But sometimes they just come people for a specific advice. And I mean, let's say something silly. If I go and ask you for advice how to paint my nails, probably you're gonna tell me, well, you need to go and talk to a manicure. But when people come to you and ask questions that they are like big questions, how I found myself, how I found a relationship, how I repair a relationship. There's so many things in our life that people believe that sometimes can be repaired. Sometimes we need to find a change. Sometimes we need to find who we are. How you guide them from a spiritual place or
Right.
religious place, someone to find themselves?
Yeah, great question. So I never tell people what to do.
I know that.
And yeah, but I think a lot of people have an expectation of clergy that like you will come to me and tell me, this is the problem I have, and I'm supposed to tell you how to fix it.
Oh,
And
you're not a wizard there.
no, it's something they learn the hard way. But the thing is that each person reacts to a situation differently, and it's based off of their family traditions and narratives and their own experiences. So what I try and do is walk them through their experiences and through their own narratives and traditions, and also where I can bring their Jewish traditions and narratives into kind of enrich and help bring an understanding to that, because I think there is a reason they're talking to me as a rabbi, is that as they're in this struggle, they're saying, I need a Jewish context, because that's so much of who I am, to get me through this difficult time. And so we work through that. Sometimes I get somebody who comes in and tells me that they're having an affair, for instance. And, it's very easy for me to say, well, the Bible says that you shouldn't commit adultery, but they know that already. But so what I explore with them is what led them to that affair. What is it that they were lacking in their marriage that led them to make this decision? But more so than that, why is that need in their marriage so important that they would risk their marriage and their family and so many other things to be fulfilled in this way by another person? And that's where it comes down to traditions and narratives, and seeing beauty and holiness in each other. And I think people are looking, when they come, not to be judged, but rather to grow and understand and learn more about themselves.
And having your faith and having your beliefs, how can you not be judging someone? It's so difficult to be in your spot, because obviously you have your rationale of how you lead your life and how you lead your people. But at the same time, they come with something that is conflicting for you.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, there are times where it's hard not to be judgmental, especially if there's something like abuse or something going on. It's really hard not to be judgmental, and I might be judgmental in those cases. But you have to remember, they're coming to you, and they know, like, for the example of an affair or something, they know that what they're doing is not what they should be doing, which is, it takes a lot of courage for them to come and talk
Absolutely.
about it, and to talk with like their spiritual leader about it, and to be vulnerable in that moment. And what you have to look at is not the situation, like this entirely what happened, the facts, but rather see the pain in the other person. That's something that's always important. If you're visiting somebody in the hospital, don't just see a person with cancer or a cancer patient, but see a human being who is in a difficult moment, who happens to have cancer. And maybe there are other things going on that where the cancer is the farthest thing from their mind, because they're really worried about somebody in their family or something else. So in terms of
That's an excellent point of view. That's amazing. Thank you
yeah,
for sharing that.
of course. And so when it comes to not judging someone, you just have to recognize that they're being vulnerable with you, and try and help them through what they're going through. Because I'm so very far from perfect. I have horrible imposter syndrome. I always fear that if my congregants knew about me everything I knew about myself, they wouldn't want me as their rabbi. And so there are people who I've seen who I've thought to myself, gosh, that person has everything. Their life is so perfect. And then they come and tell me something going on, and you realize, wow, they're really struggling. And if they've done something wrong, I always try to remind myself that when we look in our tradition, that King David, Moses, Abraham, they did bad things sometimes, but they weren't necessarily bad people. Making mistakes makes you human. Trying to make up and learn from those mistakes makes you a good human.
But at the end, it's all how we present ourselves. You're human, you make mistakes, but it's that first impression how people perceive us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, and again, I try not to be judgmental, but there are times that people come in just like, and I don't know them, and you have that first impression, you're like, wow, this person's crazy. And then you get to know them a bit more, and you kind of feel badly for judging them because you realize there's a lot more to their story. So we have to try and be patient with those folks.
Absolutely. I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
Something that always is very, very interesting for me. People who are trying to find the solutions, the complete solution in faith, that where they have problems and they just cannot deal with the reality and they feel like religion will fix the problems.
Yeah.
How you deal with something like that?
That's tough.
Yes, it is tough.
Well, something I think about, and I'm trying to speak to all religions, but with my faith, we're called the people of Israel, which means the ones who struggle with God. And I don't think that anything can give us all the answers. I don't think it's possible to know all the answers. And part of life is that we're always going to have trials and tribulations, whether it's financial, whether it's in our relationships, whether it's with our health or something else. There are going to be moments that shake us throughout our lives. I think every person is going to experience those. And I think that faith can give us a tool to channel our hopes and help us recognize the world as it is versus the world that we want to be living in, and what our actuality is versus what our reality is versus what our desire is. And religion can give us the framework to be conscious of both our ambitions, but also of what steps we need to take to make the world a better place. But part of the things I love about religion is that it can't answer everything, and there's going to always be different perspectives and struggles for us within our religion. What this does is this tests our faith, which makes it stronger and reaffirms it to us. But also, it would be so sad if, I'm a rabbi, but I'm 31 years old. It'd be so sad if I was only 31 and I had all the answers to life figured out.
Will be boring.
Yeah, it would be, because I think that what religion does is it provides us a path for a lifetime of growth towards working to be better people and to learn more and become better educated and to see more holiness in ourselves and in those around us.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It was wonderful to have you here. And we might call you back when we have more questions about things.
Wonderful. I look forward to that.
It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.